opportunity.
All right,
them.
Bringing it back to football, week 4.
Yeah.
What are you interested in this week? What piques your interest?
The two best games to me are what's going to happen down in Dallas, right? Because I think we get a test on who's for real. Is it Texas A&M or is it Arkansas? One of those teams is going to emerge. They're going to be undefeated. We're going to be in College Station in 2 weeks. We were already in Fayetteville for that Texas game. Arkansas sent a message by kicking Texas's ass. The question is, they've lost 7 in a row in Dallas. Can they get over that hump against Texas A&M and establish themselves? Because to me, what we're looking at right now in the SEC in particular, which also plays out on the national level, is who's the third best team. We know Alabama. We know Georgia are the top 2, right? Who's that third team? Is it Ole Miss? Is it Arkansas? Is it Texas A&M? Is it, Auburn had a decent showing against certainly Penn State? Is it Florida, who certainly in the second half played phenomenally well? So that's an early test of who's the third best and who could make a run in the SEC West, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen there. And then the big noon kickoff guys are in Chicago for that Wisconsin-Notre Dame game from Soldier Field. Wisconsin's already lost 1. Are they a legit top 15-ish team? And is Notre Dame, who was wobbly against Florida State, they were wobbly against Toledo, and they weren't great against Purdue, are they going to be a playoff contender, or are they more of a pretender? So those 2 games to me stand out as sort of the essence. And then as someone who's always going to care, even though the game keeps falling down the flow chart, what is what's going to happen in the Tennessee-Florida game?
There's nothing like being on campus for a game, but both of those neutral site games should have an awesome atmosphere. We know that Arkansas will bring it with Texas A&M, and then Notre Dame in Chicago should be awesome.
Yeah, look, and I'm a big fan of neutral site games. We're going to be at Florida, Georgia, down in Jacksonville, which I think is one of the greatest environments out there. Certainly Oklahoma, Texas in the Cotton Bowl is amazing. The 50-50 setup is tough to beat. We started off this tour in Charlotte for Georgia Clemson, but the yearly rivalry game or a rivalry game specially scheduled in a unique place is pretty fantastic.
Clay, if you're placing a bet right now for the future of these programs, who reaches or meets expectations first, Jimbo Fisher or Kirby Smart?
Well, the expectation for both now is a national championship.
Right.
So that is an incredibly high standard. And, I was down in Atlanta when Alabama came storming back, sorry, Georgia fans, to win the national title. And obviously people, first time they really got introduced to Devontae Smith and to Tua in that pass that won the championship for Alabama. And remember, that was when Jalen Hurts got benched. Georgia dominated that first half. I mean, Bama had no business really winning that game. But I was amazed the next morning we were doing the radio show, and Georgia fans were like, hey, that's all right. We'll be back. And even that morning, my thought process was, man, you can't think like you're Alabama and Nick Saban. Most people, or the New England Patriots when it comes to the Super Bowl, most teams don't get the opportunity to be in big games like that all the time. And Georgia hasn't gotten back, right? So if I had to bet right now, I like Kirby Smart's chances to win a championship earlier than I do for Jimbo Fisher, because I think the SEC East is so much weaker. And you got to get, like, right now, if I'm a Georgia fan, I don't want to lose a game during the regular season because I want to have the mulligan to get into the playoff. If we get to the playoff, if you're Georgia and you're 12-0, you're going to be one of the 4 playoff teams. And you can't win a championship unless you get into the playoff. And it's hard. I know there are teams that come in second in their division and end up in the playoff otherwise, but it's hard to win a national championship if you can't be the best team in your division. Georgia is the best team in the East. A&M might be the second or third best team this year. In the West, they could be the 4th best team before all is said and done, certainly with Haynes King injured. We'll see what they do against Arkansas this weekend, and we'll see what they do against Bama in a couple of weeks.
Is Penn State a legit playoff contender? They have the 2 best wins combined when you look at it with Auburn and with at Wisconsin so far. Are they a legit contender?
Well, first of all, Jill's Iowa Hawkeye
Thank you. I was
team
gonna throw that in there.
has got a couple of good resume wins there too. But I think that Penn State, the challenge is they haven't won on the road at Ohio State, right? And until somebody knocks Ohio State off that mantle in the Big Ten, I think you have to make Ohio State still a favorite, even though I don't think their defense is commensurate with being considered an elite level team right now. And look, Sean Clifford has looked better. The Penn State defense, I think, is pretty good. We'll see an early test on Wisconsin, too. Penn State was maybe a little bit fortunate to win that game. So we'll see how all that ends up shaking out.
I want to go back to Vanderbilt. In general, do you think it matters that someone has knowledge of a place before they coach there? And is it maybe a little bit different at Vanderbilt with Clark Lee having such institutional knowledge of this program and what it needs?
I think it matters because
does it matter more here?
I think it matters everywhere because it's all about it. First of all, if you get things rolling, if you have a connection to the university, you're more likely to stay, right? James Franklin won 9 games back-to-back years here. If he had been a Vandy alum, I think maybe he would have been more likely to stay, like Pat Fitzgerald has been at Northwestern, right? So if I'm Vanderbilt and I'm looking around and I'm Candace Lee, who I think has done a really good job, what I would want to believe about Clark Lee is he can be our Pat Fitzgerald. He can be the guy who is an alum of the school, who has a unique understanding of it, and whatever the level of expectation is at Vanderbilt, and I think it's fair to say it's not wildly high, right? Whatever that level is, that he can manage it and be the Pat Fitzgerald of Vanderbilt. That would be the analogy that I would draw. I'm big on, trying to think of someone who has done something that you believe you'd like to accomplish as well. David Shaw, who was here last week with Stanford, and Pat Fitzgerald would be targets if I were Vanderbilt.